IESE and ECGI. This is the fourth conference in the IESE-ECGI series, which was, of course, initiated by Jordi. I mean, as you know, Jordi was the dean at IESE, which is, of course, a part of the reason why you see all these facilities and the facilities in Madrid. But then one day, Jordi gave me a call and said, I'm not going to be dean anymore. And I said, what are you going to do next? And he says, I'm actually going to set up a corporate governance center. I says, great, this is excellent. And then a bit later, he called me and said, we would like to do a series with ECGI. And I said, that's wonderful news. And this is the fourth edition. Now, history is that Jordi was actually incremental in setting up ECGI. I think we were here for the first time in 2008. So part of where ECGI is today is thanks to IESE and thanks to him. Now, what's the conference going to be about? We discuss this every year. Jordi called me and he said, why don't we do the next one about corporate culture? Now, I have to say that ECGI, the network, mostly consists of economists, finance people, and lawyers. And we are very successful in making lawyers talk to finance people. But which is laughing, which is an accomplishment. But we don't really go that far in mixing with strategy and management scholars. Now, when you, of course, talk about a topic like corporate culture, that's what you really need to do. So since I didn't know how to respond to this, I said, well, let's call our ECGI expert on this, Paula Sapienza, who'd actually given in 2019 the ECGI annual lecture at IESE. And she then came along. She can't be here today, but we then got from her a definition of corporate culture, which, to start off, I'll read to you. This is the economics definition. So Paula says, I think of culture as preferences and beliefs that are shared by social, ethnic, and religious groups. They are transmitted pretty much unchanged from generation to generation. So what do economists know about this? There's a lot of research, for example, her own, that shows them Canadians move to America, they keep Canadian values. For example, they continue to use the metric system, might you believe. So we have evidence of this, but of course, what's the link with the corporation? Now, if there was any doubt when Jordi called me, today you probably opened the FT yesterday, and we are now talking not just about the anti-ESG laws coming out of Texas, but we are talking about the reaction from some Federal Reserve governors to the anti-ESG laws coming out of Texas. So, of course, we have culture in politics and so forth, but here is an example how that immediately translates into corporate culture. Now, the program today is we have, of course, experts from different fields, and they're going to talk about the board, remuneration. There, of course, the question is, and we'll hear from Alex Edmonds, whether the culture determines the pay or the pay determines the culture. And then after the academic presentations, one of the great strengths of IESE is that it can reach out to fantastic corporate speakers, and we will have a panel with four extraordinary examples, a family company, third generation, listed on the New York Stock Exchange with a very strong culture. And of course, IKEA needs no introduction. I remember when they moved to Luxembourg, the story was they flew up a plane, but then the founder, of course, decided to buy a bus ticket, which people in Luxembourg still talk about today. So culture is with us, and we are going to have, I think, a great day. And with this, I stop, and I'm turning it over to the dean, the current dean.
All right. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Jordi. Happy to be part of this welcome panel here this morning of this fourth edition already of this conference, and which is making lots of progress. Also, if we think about how it's been working through the years of the pandemic. I remember the first one happening in a normal classroom here in Barcelona, and then we were mostly online, hybrid last year in Madrid, and now a larger group today, already here presential. So that's also progress from that perspective. So I'm very happy to see how this is growing. And of course, I want to thank Marco and ECGI for this continuous support of IESE. I think it's mutually beneficial, and we're both growing in this way and contributing to the work around corporate governance. I think I also want to thank Carlos Cavallé, who is not here with us this morning, the president of the Social Trends Institute, who has been a supporter of this event for several years already, and who follows it very closely and is very much supporting it in different ways. So also thank you. And of course, also thank you to Jordi Canals and the Corporate Governance Institute that he is chairing indeed, and through which IESE is doing different activities in the area of corporate governance, and this one is a highlight that we're having here today. I think we're privileged indeed by the lineup of speakers that you already mentioned, Marco, that are going to be with us here today. So great content and good debates are assured. So don't need to get into the details. We'll hear this further. And as you say, I think one of the interesting parts of this conference is precisely the interaction between scholars and practitioners, the fact that they come together and they actually have a dialogue. So there's a conversation happening. Both sides are talking and both sides are listening, which is also important. And I think that's one of the things that we like very much to do precisely at the school here, to connect the deep research-based ideas with the actual practice and make sure that both benefit from that conversation. I think that's a very good thing. And I take it that the quote that culture eats strategy for breakfast is still popular. I see it being used. It's supposedly attributed, I think, to Peter Drucker, which I guess tells us that even if maybe we don't buy exactly, that way of saying it, but it clearly points to the fact that culture is important one way or another. That strategy is important. Nobody would discuss debate. So culture must be too, one way or another. And I guess that's precisely what we're going to see here today in these different contributions. So thank you so much for doing this, both Jordi and Marco, and welcome to the conference.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marco. Thank you very much, Franz, for these introductory words. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this ECGI IESE conference on corporate governance. I would like to also welcome those people online. We have, I think, a few hundred of them online from different parts of the world. It's also a great pleasure, even if you are not here on campus, that you could follow the conference, and also you can post your questions or comments to the different ideas presented in this conference. It's also, I think, really interesting to try to deepen into a theme that is becoming more and more important, which is the role of corporate governance, and within corporate governance, the role of corporate culture. This is an area that in some other academic disciplines, in management, organizational theory, leadership, perhaps in those areas, the notion of corporate culture has been developed, sometimes not in a very, I would say, clear and unique way, but has been dealt by different scholars in a very, I would say, very interesting approach. It's not been the case in corporate governance. And I think that right now we are seeing a number of circumstances that may make the current time as a turning point for corporate culture within corporate governance. First thing is that, and Marco, you made a brief reference to it, is that we have seen over the past 5, 6, 7 years major corporate crisis, major corporate governance crisis, or corporate crises that were generated by, I would say, mediocre or very poor corporate governance. And at the heart of this mediocrity, many people identified a problem with corporate culture. It's very easy to remember Facebook, Volkswagen, Uber, WeWork, Ycar, and you can mention many other companies. Okay, so certainly those crises have very different factors to take into account, but it's clear that corporate culture probably was one of them. Okay, I was also willing to make a special reference to the financial industry, and especially banking, and Wells Fargo is, I think, a very clear case, okay, of the problem with when you don't have, I would say, an appropriate corporate culture, things can go wrong in a very, very quick way. Second movement that we can observe today is that especially in banking and financial services, we see regulators stepping in, okay? And regulators not just asking boards of directors in banking, financial insurance, asset managers, a number of things about, I would say, a traditional checklist of factors that traditionally they ask from financial institutions. Today, the chapter devoted to corporate culture is growing, okay, it's growing. So regulators want to know more about corporate culture. We know how difficult it is, but this is what is happening. And then the third point is that we're seeing the same pressure from institutional investors, large asset managers, that beyond asking about, board composition and board structure and governance agreements and risk policies, etc. They are asking today about the culture of the company. Moreover, there are some asset managers today asking they want to know more about the culture of the board of directors, okay? So three, I would say, movements that have been somehow unfolding over the past few years that probably make the current time, I would say, a turning point in terms of the importance of corporate culture. We'll know that corporate culture is a complex issue, not easy to identify, to do research on, but we should try it. And this is what we, with ECGI, we have been trying to do with this conference. We picked up 5 themes that we think are very important for corporate culture. We're perhaps leaving aside other dimensions, but we had to pick up 5 themes that are essentially our executive compensation, our leadership development, and in particular hiring, development, and diversity. Also the issues of strategy, organization, and corporate culture. How corporate culture actually affects somehow the long-term orientation of the company and the debate on shareholders versus other stakeholders. And finally, board dynamics. I mean, how the culture of the board and the dynamics of the board somehow make or may not make more effective decisions, and how this culture at the board level eventually permeates the whole organization. Okay, so 5 topics, and we have 5 fantastic scholars and leading scholars who will share with us their thoughts on those themes. And with the help of the discussants and moderators, we hope to have a fantastic debate on these topics. At the end of the day, we'll have also a panel with chairmen of companies and CEOs and board directors we hope will bring also some additional light on the concerns of those people when they think about corporate culture in their own organizations. So I think we have a very attractive program, and I'm sure that it's going to be a fantastic day today. I would like to thank in a very special way Marco Becht and ECGI and all your team, starting with Herman Dimes, Helen McParland, for all your great help in all the conferences, and in this conference in particular. Marco, it's a great pleasure, great privilege to be able to work with you, and also we will learn a lot here. I learn a lot by working with Marco and his team. I also want to thank, I think, the presenters, the authors who will present papers, discussants, moderators for being here. We have all the speakers here except 2 for a number of reasons. We will have one of them, Bob Gibbons, online, and then we'll have in the panel at the end of the day, we'll have a board member of Wells Fargo also online. They couldn't be here eventually, but I hope that they will be able to convey their ideas and messages in a very clear way. So thank you very much, those of you, those authors, presenters, moderators, and discussants for being with us today. I also would like to thank Social Trends Institute and its president, Carlos Cavallé, for, I see Tracy O'Donnell, who is the executive director here, for their not only economic support for the conference, but also ideas and intellectual support. Social Trends Institute is a think tank that tries to promote cross-functional, cross-disciplinary research in social sciences. And they thought that this conference that also tries to be cross-functional with scholars coming from corporate finance, corporate law, strategic management, organizational theory, organizational economics is a good example, okay, of this type of interfunctional approach that we would like to follow. I also want to thank Dean Franz Heukamp and the whole team at IESE for allowing us to have these conferences and helping us to, for a very good and smooth functioning. I want to make a reference to also Miriam Fresha, Esther Ribes, and Nuria Molet. They are around here. Nuria cannot be here today for health reasons, but they have been fantastic in putting together the logistics, the program, and the arrangements for the conference. And last but not least, I want to thank you all, the participants in this conference, for being here today, for spending a day with us, thinking and reflecting upon those themes. Also, those of you online, feel free to send us your questions whenever you want. So it's 10 o'clock, 3 past 10, so it's time to start. We'll try to stick to a timetable, and I would like to ask Paul Healy and Ana Luz Reyes and Guy Scaur-Mazabal to come over here and start the first session. Thank you.